Trump loves what's happening in Minnesota. He doesn't care about anyone dying. He doesn't care about the good of the country. He cares about his own dopamine hits. That is what motivates him to do everything he does every day. Let's just assume for a moment, for educational purposes, that he's a narcissist, and we're going to play out what's happened from his last term all the way to here to figure out how we got here and how you may have been fooled into voting for him. So, we're going to start with the solution. We must understand how narcissists operate so we won't be taken advantage of again. In one word, I want to tell you how to understand what to do, and the word is refuse. You want to refuse to reward your loyalty over the truth, your silence over clarity, and agreement over integrity. If you can remember those three things, you got this. Now, if you understand a narcissist, it's all about regulating unbearable internal discomfort by controlling the people and systems around them. They have unbearable internal discomfort, so they have to regulate themselves by controlling people around them. And in our case, Donald Trump is using systems and now a whole country and now the whole world to regulate himself. A word about that. It's like an addiction. In any addiction, you get immune to a certain degree. So it looks like he's escalating, but it's just the same behavior, him needing more of a hit. Now, what the problem is in our country right now, because we have tons of narcissists walking around amongst us, many have been hurt by them, many have figured it out. But Trump, as any narcissist, if they're left unchecked, their behavior is going to get more and more punitive and horrible for people around them. So that's what's happened with Trump. A lot of people helped put him in power so they could line their own pockets. And even those people are going, what do we do now? So now, escalation is a predictable outcome of how regulation, identity, and authority interact. The solution is always more checks on their behavior. He exploited those loopholes. We let him. So if you're dealing with a narcissist in your life, like many of you are, who are trying to manipulate you, the answer is always checks on their behavior. It's not to go up against them. And I'm going to explain that more to you. So for example, I know someone going through a divorce with a narcissist. What do they need to do now? They need to let the courts intervene more, not go up against them and try to correct their behavior. Although there are some behavioral strategies you'll learn. All right, when power is unchecked with a narcissist, whether it's in your personal life or a leader, they will replace merit with loyalty. As you've seen in the choices for cabinet, it's not about merit, it's about how loyal those people will be to them. And guess what? Your loyalty is why they chose you if you're in that relationship. So you're going to learn about that too. All right, agreement regulates them more than the truth. I personally like truth. It makes me feel confident and strong. They don't like truth. They like loyalty and agreement. All right, why do we fall for narcissists? Why did this country fall for a narcissist? Many supporters and partners and coworkers initially like the confidence, the decisiveness, and the disruption, right? We voted for Trump because he was going to have change. I've seen it over and over again. But as escalation continues, confidence becomes rigidity, decisiveness becomes recklessness, and disruption becomes instability. This is what happens when external restraints disappear, which has happened more and more with Trump. I don't know if any of you saw the Trump movie with how he kind of got started and his in the Trump movie, how he got started, and he had the attorney mentor that taught him the 3 rules on how to be successful. Never admit wrongdoing, number 1. 2, attack. And 3, claim victory and never concede, no matter what the facts are. In current culture now, we understand this as Darvo. I don't know who originated this. I think it was Jennifer, someone. Y'all put that in the comments. But now we know it's Darvo. It's, I don't know, they're born with it, they develop it, I don't know, but it's this acronym for what narcissists do to get you off course. And it loosely follows these 3 rules I just told you about. We will go over Darvo at the end of this. It's really important you understand what's happening. All right. Remember January 6th? How did we not know? January 6th was Trump doing the same thing that he's doing now. The same thing. He labeled opposition as insurrection and terrorism. He demanded force. He delegitimized critics, and he tightened federal power. He encouraged violence. And what happened? The supporters stormed the Capitol after his election claims. Now, instead of the supporters, and he's got plenty of those now, he has ICE and DHS doing that work for him. So of course it's going to lead to what just happened in 2 deaths in Minnesota. And I'm going to tell you a little bit that may surprise you. There's been more deaths than that. These just have gotten attention. Thank God. Poor people. So when Trump got elected, I noticed that someone had spoken out that when they applied to work under his administration, they were asked if they believed the elections were rigged, the last elections that he lost to Biden. And I was like, that's crazy, because these are supposed to be, even though they're executive branch positions, this is a nonpartisan job. And another interesting thing, if you go on whitehouse.gov, it's all about a lead magnet for Donald Trump. It's all been about politically believing in him, politically supporting him. It's not nonpartisan. It's all feeding his narcissism. So the Republican National Committee, it's documented, they asked applicants whether they believed the 2020 election was stolen. And federal job applicants had essay questions that required them to explain how they'd help advance the president's policies. Again, political loyalty screening and nonpartisan career positions. And I want to tell you about someone, I tried to explain this to someone I love who I've had no contact with now because they're hurting our country because they won't listen to this. About one individual in particular named Stephen Miller. Now, there's a lot more I can go into because I used to work for Ronald Reagan. I used to work with the Heritage Foundation. I'm going to give you a lot more background as this channel keeps going. But I want to tell you about one person, Stephen Miller. So Stephen Miller is a top advisor to the president. And what people don't know, because I want to document the violence. I want to document the bloodthirstiness in this administration. So Stephen Miller has repeatedly championed policies that have been called xenophobic or white nationalist aligned, right? Now, I know a lot of people, I've heard the comments, I see it, I've talked to people, you just blame left wing. And if you think about it, it's this thing over and over again. You blame the other people. You blame Antifa, which isn't even an organization. You got to blame so you can attack. So again, you're seeing what he did there. Now, advocacy and civil rights groups have condemned Stephen Miller as promoting fear and division. It's what he does. So who is this person, right? It's really important to know. He designs the machinery behind Trump. He makes it happen. He translates Trump's impulses, so Trump just says, do this, and he makes it into policy, rules, and enforcement structures that last beyond any single speech or moment. He enforces, he's the enforcer, loyalty inside government. Miller has driven hiring, vetting, and policy processes that prioritize ideological alignment and obedience over expertise or dissent. Gotta be loyal. Gotta be loyal. And the most scary part is he reframes cruelty as necessity through language like invasion and existential threat. It's a hard word. He normalizes escalation and presents force as a moral duty rather than a choice. And he removes guardrails quietly. Miller works bureaucratically, weakening oversight, bypassing local authority, and accelerating enforcement with little public attention. And that's the part I'm trying to draw attention to Stephen Miller, that he's quietly doing these things in the background. It's not that just like Trump just says something and this stuff miraculously happens. He's largely the one who's influencing these things happening, though there's lots of other people. And we're going to talk about 1, 2, Pam Bondi and Kristi Noem in a minute. Okay. All right. Trump is the trigger. Stephen Miller is a system. It's just the way to think of it. Now, another example, I want to continue on with this, not just January 6th, but Trump is always the same person. He doesn't care about people. He's a narcissist. He doesn't care about killing. He doesn't care about hurting people. And he certainly does not care about the good of the American public, as an elected official should. Do you remember recently where he called for Democratic leaders to be punished by death and severe punishment, including hanging? Now, he's always believed these things. What's different is the guardrails keep coming off and coming off. And we're going to see that the results of all this, and it's going to keep escalating, y'all, are death. And narcissists usually don't care about death. I don't know how this works overall. Maybe it's a sociopathic thing. Y'all can say in the comments, but they care about one thing, and that's regulating their emotions through dopamine. All right. I want to explain to you a little bit about what's happening with ICE and DHS, because ICE and DHS are the things that are drawing attention to the behavior and the logical outcome. Because if we understand how this happened and we really understand what's going on now, then we cannot let this happen again. So ICE and DHS, and I had an argument with someone about this that wouldn't listen because they listened to the Darvo or the Roy Kahn 3 things instead of listening to the truth. And remember, how do we get rid of all this craziness? It's truth. So I want to really spend a moment explaining this to you. ICE and DHS aren't just policy tools for Trump. They're how he imposes his control when persuasion and restraint fail. Remember, Trump doesn't regulate through compromise, never compromise, credibility, or shared reality. When persuasion fails, force and fear regulate instead. The tariffs. He didn't start with, let's work together. He started with, I'm going to punish you, and we're going to go all the way to the extreme of tariffs, and then you have to come back to me. ICE and DHS give him visible authority, immediate compliance, and consequences without debate. It's not the only means. Tariffs do it. I'm going to invade Greenland. I mean, it goes on and on. It's like an everyday occurrence, right? But we're going to talk about ICE and DHS because this is terrifying. These things are terrifying, what's happening in our country right now. They give him visible authority, immediate compliance, and consequences without debate. And I'm going to tell you something else that's happening that's very disturbing that Pam Bondi did today. He does these things over and over again to stabilize him emotionally. He uses fear as a tool. So ICE and DHS don't enforce policy. They signal dominance, create uncertainty on purpose, and discourage resistance. But they're not doing that now. But Stephen Miller just said you need to not resist. So, and what did I say is the number one word? Is refuse. All right. Immigration enforcement of ICE is not about immigration enforcement. It's not been at the border, although there has been some at the border. It's about fear, control, and coercion. Our fear regulates Trump. I want to give you some examples if you've not had time or cared about looking about what's really happening, but I want to talk about some ICE reported incidents and investigations in the past year that will show you what's happening in Minnesota is the tip of the iceberg. There have been allegations of widespread abuse. There is a Senate investigation right now with over 500 credible reports of abuse in immigration facilities, including 41 cases of physical and sexual abuse, including rape, mistreatment of pregnant women, including a miscarriage due to neglect, and children being denied treatment. There have been Human Rights Watch and advocates for human rights organizations documenting cruel, inhumane, and degrading treatment in ICE detention, including restrictions on legal access, denial of medical services, restrictive solitary confinement, and torture. Now, from what I know about Stephen Miller, he sees this as a means, like Adolf Hitler did, of purging society of brown people. Am I wrong? Is this for informational purposes only? I don't know. Go back and research what he said. I think that if I had to guess, that's really not what Trump's trying to do. That's what Stephen Miller enjoys because he, in my opinion, is a sociopath. Trump likes the dominance and control. Further investigations on ICE and DHS reports indicate hundreds of immigrants, have reported sexual abuse and assault by ICE detention officers, contract guards, and others while in custody. And many of these reports go uninvestigated or unaddressed. We also know that there's people that have gone missing that we've never heard from again. What happened to those people? And then there's the infamous Alligator Alcatraz, which I like to call a concentration camp. An Amnesty International report alleged abuse at Alligator Alcatraz, including tiny outdoor cages without water, violence by guards repressing detainees seeking help, overcrowding, medical neglect, and degrading punishment practices. ICE is hiring the most sociopathic people that want to harm people. Are they all like that? I don't think so, but a lot are. And they are saying violence is good, go for it. There's been record high deaths in ICE custody in 2025, just the past year. In late 2025, at least 30 deaths in ICE custody were reported, the highest in over 2 decades. At least 6 immigrants died recently while in ICE custody amid aggressive federal agents, including 1 death by asphyxiation. So, there's a lot more. These are just examples. I hope I prove the point of what's happening here. If not, read it again, listen again. Now, let's go to Kristi Noem, other sociopathic narcissist, and why he chose her to head ICE. Trump chose Kristi Noem, like he chooses everyone, for loyalty, visible loyalty, aggressive narrative defense using Darvo, blame, attack, act like the victim, right? She's really good at it too, which there's some examples even this weekend. And she doesn't challenge his authority. She puts this image forward, enforcement. I don't know if you've heard about her memoir disclosure in 2025. She publicly described killing her dog Cricket and a goat in her book. So that kind of signals sociopath to me. But for Donald Trump, it signaled any means for the goal. So he liked that. She's no victim. She is a cold-blooded murderer, in my opinion. Now, why did she choose Donald Trump? It's because the role feeds the same narcissistic needs that she has. And it's been obvious, but let's put it in the context of narcissism. Am I diagnosing them? No, I'm just saying what my experience has been and how it looks the same and how we might be able to learn from it. She chose him to feed the same needs: visibility, admiration, power, and moral license to dominate. It's a mutual reinforcement loop. It's interesting when two narcissists get together. What you're seeing is not one narcissist using a neutral actor. So she's not like a victim. It's two aligned narcissists feeding each other. Noam is in charge of this work, the ICE and DHS work, and she oversaw and commanded what's happening. She's responsible for how ICE operates, how force is authorized, how incidents are investigated, and how the public is told to understand them. Okay. Now, the thing people do know about her is the Ice Barbie nickname. And you could see it as sort of narcissistic behavior, and certainly it adds up with more things, but people have made fun of her for these tactical raid photo ops where she repeatedly appeared in all these different costumes as part of the DHS public messaging. There's another commercial that we, the taxpayers, paid for where she's on a horse operating inside Minneapolis to incite what? Fear, dominance, and control. So let's bring us to the extremely tragic two things that have happened recently. We're going to start with Renee Nicole Good, and then we're going to go to Alex Jeffrey Preddy. And I want to say about these two individuals that it's extremely horrible and sad what happened to them. And also, it's up to us to make their lives and their deaths make sense right now by exposing this. So let's help it make sense. That's what I think they would want. Now, using the Darvo or Roy Cohn's 3 things, how did Ice Barbie respond to the killing of a very innocent, she looked very kind and sweet, Renee Nicole Good? How did she respond to this? She attacked her by saying she tried to run over ICE agents, framing the shooting as self-defense. She labeled the incident domestic terrorism without clarifying what she meant. All right? Alex Jeffrey Preddy. Videos show him holding a phone, not a gun, before he's tackled and shot. She's come out, many of, I don't know who all's doing the PR campaign. He had a concealed carry license. He had a gun on him. But aren't conservatives pro-gun ownership? Aren't they pro-gun ownership and the right to carry arms? And this man was doing it legally. It's not like he was a criminal. He had a concealed carry license, and he wasn't using his weapon. They've used that, again, to blame an attack. He was a peaceful man. He was actually helping someone when he got shot, and they shot him like 10 or 12 times. He was holding a phone, not a gun, before he was tackled and shot. And instead of saying something compassionate about him, she said, again, Noam said, Preddy posed an armed threat. Again, labeling this as domestic terrorism before there were any investigations. Now, the thing that was probably the most disturbing is she continued operations after his death. They didn't suspend anyone. They actually defended the officers who did this. Trump's response. Trump was using insurrection language again to control. Not calm. And the messaging around Minnesota escalated into insurrection framing and insurrection act threats, treating dissent like rebellion. So he had an excuse to do this. And let's not forget Stephen Miller. What was his response? He publicly claimed local police were ordered to stand down and surrender, framing it as only federal officers upholding the law. Again, we should submit. We should submit. We can't resist. We should not resist. We should just do exactly what they say. That's what they're saying. Now, even more concerning was what happened today when Attorney General Pam Bondi demanded access to Minnesota's voter rolls and welfare data. Why? Why is Trump cutting off welfare? Why is he cutting off programs that help people? And why is he asking for voter rolls? Because he wants to know who his enemy is, so he can suppress them. He does. God knows what happened with Elon Musk and the Doge data being taken. Anyway, he's using it to pressure states. He's got a lot of pressure on states, especially Democratic ones. He wants to police populations, and he wants to influence the elections. Hasn't he demonstrated that over and over again by January 6th and calling election fraud? Doesn't he want to influence the elections? He wants to do that more than anything, probably. So, what comes now? I wanted to teach you all this stuff so you know, so you have some kind of factual proof of what's happening. And I know it's kind of boring for me to go through all these details, and it's not as fun as me being emotional, but I needed some proof text, which is not something that would normally comes to mind when we're talking about these things, but I needed you to see it laid out. But I want you to know now what we do. And anyone who survived a narcissist will tell you this is what to do. You get clear on what their tactics are. Number one, we've already said what their tactics are. We're going to go over DARVO in just a second, the acronym. And you kind of step out of the chaos and blame. A lot of us are really good-natured people, and so we take the blame right away. It crushes us, and we get in this loop where we are controlled more. A lot of us also are just good people, and we can't believe someone else would be like this. But you can't take the way you operate, the way your brain operates, and say that is what that person's doing, because it's not the same. It's completely different. So you can't give them the benefit of the doubt. You have to understand the psychology there. So I want you to stay clear, whether this is with your president or your partner or coworker. You want to document reality. You don't argue or get defensive with all the dumb spin. You don't do it. You don't get sucked into it. And you want to start building structure and support. It's really hard because if you're in a relationship with a narcissist, they will try to isolate you. That's one of their first tactics. But slowly and surely you can gain support and structure. And I'll tell you, one of the great things that's happening in this country now is overwhelming tidal wave of support and people coming together. Now, I want you, again, whether it's personal or in leadership, to insist on transparent investigation and accountability. This is happening. If it's happening with you, it's going to happen with courts, CPS, or whatever. I know I don't like the conflict either, but we cannot say, I am not going to engage in conflict. We have to choose a side, and the side is for good and protectiveness and truth and being confident and competent and not being harmed like this. And then you're going to learn how to set boundaries with these people. The good news. The good news is, as I said, we are uniting together. And I actually predicted this during Trump's first administration. I could see it. I could see all these isolated people actually coming together at some point. And that's happening. That's a good thing. What else is going to happen, and it's going to take time, but we're going to have policies and legislation that's going to limit executive reach, even maybe on the state level. I think It's going to happen. We're more accountability. I know. I was a conservative under Reagan. Do we want more big government? Yeah, we do. In this regard, we want big government because these powerful people are hurting us. We need to have big government. Another point on this is, I used to be conservative and be pro-work and anti-union. And now I see things so much differently because these powerful, and I was in DC, y'all, I know, these powerful institutions and people, wealthy people, and we've seen it with oligarchs now, but it's been this way forever. They have the power, and so they can exploit workers. And we have to fight for our kids who don't have the same opportunities we had. We have to fight for the people, even the lower class, but even middle class now, because it's becoming lower and upper, that we have good health care, we have good education, we have a good quality of life, and we're not just slaves to making people wealthy. So we are going to have policies that care about our citizens more. You're going to see that happen. You really are. I want you to have hope in this. So the last thing I want is to explain Darvo, and then we're going to understand the truth a little bit. So Darvo, you can look it up. I actually lived it without knowing what it meant. And it's the same thing as at the beginning, Trump's mentor told him. Darvo stands for D, deny, A, attack, and then RVO is reverse victim and offender. So it's like, I didn't do that. Like, let's use Gnome and Ice because she's using it right now. Oh, I'm going to deny that actually happened. I'm going to attack the victim, which is reversing the victim, and say, I'm the victim. The offender's the victim. Now that you understand Darvo, you'll see it being used and you won't fall into the trap. All right. I'm going to end with this truth. I want you to understand what these institutions are being used for and stop being manipulated. And that's what brings us back to the one-word advice. Refuse. Resist. Refuse. Same word. Don't do it. Don't fall into it. We are going to have a lot of fun on this channel talking about hard things but supporting each other. It's already happening. And that's why I'm doing this. Okay? We're going to learn how to do it. We're going to learn to get confident and strong. And those of us who've gone through this are here to help those who are finding out what the frick just happened. Okay? Say bye.
Bye.
See ya.